meeting. The meeting will be recorded and proceedings will be conducted in accordance with the Council's constitution, including procedural rules which are available on the Council's website. Item 1 is the emergency evacuation procedure. There is no planned evacuation drill this evening, and accordingly, if the alarm sound, it is to be treated as a genuine need to evacuate. There are emergency exits through the door here and turn immediately to your left. On exiting, you'll be directed to the assembly point. It is important you remain there and do not return to the building until I have announced that it is safe to do so. If anyone present will need assistance in evacuating, could you please inform me now so that we can make necessary arrangements to assist you. Thank you. The meeting has a quasi-judicial role and determines the rights and obligations of the applicant. Members must consider each application and everything that is said in the meeting concerning the application and make their decision based solely on their planning judgment of the information available to them. Following a decision by members, delegated authority is given to the planning officer to issue the decision notice, and planning permission is not granted or refused until the issue of that decision notice. Any member of the council who is not a member of the planning committee may attend as a visiting member and may speak, having given prior notification. Such visiting members may, of course, include ward members. And whilst visiting members can speak on an application, they are not permitted to vote. Any member acting as a substitute on the planning committee must have undertaken appropriate training before doing so. And members must remain in the meeting for the whole time that each item is being debated and should not vote on the item unless they have done so. I'd now like to welcome our public speakers and remind you that you have 3 minutes to speak, and an audible warning of time will be given when there are 30 seconds remaining. If the meeting is deferred to conduct a site meeting, you may speak both at this meeting and at the site meeting, but there will be no further opportunity to speak on the matter when it comes back to the planning committee. The meeting will follow the order set out in the agenda. However, I will amend the order if there's good reason for doing so, and in particular, I'll take any items where a member of the public has registered to speak first, before moving on to the remainder of the agenda, and I will verbally reorder the agenda as appropriate. Item 2 on the agenda is apologies for absence and any substitutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Steve Davey, who is substituted by Councillor Lynn McCall, and also apologies from Councillor Mike Henderson. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda is to invite members' declarations, first of all, of disclosable pecuniary interests under the Local Income Act. Members, are there any? Thank you. Disclosable non-pecuniary interests under the Code of Conduct adopted by the Council. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, Councillor Beard.
Minor point of order. On the printed minutes of the 16th of November 2020, Councillor Richard Darby declared a disposable pecuniary interest in land at East of Queenborough Road and did not vote on the item. This is the same item we're considering this evening.
Okay. Darby.
Declared interest in it. I'm interested in having interest.
Thank you.
I just wanted to, for the record, just to
Yes.
check, because obviously if this,
Absolutely.
if there's any legal challenge.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'll just bring the legal officer in.
Do you remember, councillor, what that interest pertained to, and is it something where your situation has changed?
That says, as per councillor
The
Beer,
minutes don't tell you.
Well, no, but
Yeah.
I just think it
both
if it was-
on Queenborough Town Council.
okay, so it might have been something at the time that gave rise to you having a disposable interest, which you now don't.
Not something on Queenborough Town
Still,
Council.
okay. So do you want to declare a disposable non-pecuniary interest?
Well, if you want to, yeah, pen and then.
Okay. So can we just clarify that it's a disclosable non-pecuniary interest?
The non-pecuniary interest.
Thank you.
Does that mean I can vote or not? Okay. Yes or no?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, if it's non-pecuniary, you can take part in the vote and vote as long as you are here with an open mind.
Thank you. So item 4 is to approve the minutes the meeting held on the 10th of November 2022, minute numbers 434 to 440 as a correct record. Members, can we agree those? Thank you very much indeed. So we now move on to item 5, which is this evening's deferred item, and that's to consider application 20/505059/full, which is Willow Trees, 11 High Street, Newington, ME9 7JJ. And I'll thank our officer for an outline and any updates, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jim Wilson, the Council's Major Projects Officer. I'll just share my screen. Yeah, as members will recollect, this item is obviously considered in detail at the meeting in November, so I won't dwell unduly on every single slide. Just sort of quickly go through, and there's site location plan, aerial photo, frontage with the A2 to the south of the site, public right way just down the side of the site. That's a photo showing the condition of the site and existing property to be retained. That's from the new Persimmon development, which adjoins the site. That's another one of it. There's the open space serving the Persimmon development. That's the view from the public right of way to the north of the site. Close up to the public right of way. Getting to the sort of the meat of this, if you like. The key issue at the last meeting, one of the issues raised by members was a number of visitor parking spaces. Following the deferral last time, and as set out on pages 9 and 10, the applicant has actually made all the amendments, Chairman, that members were looking for. And in terms of one that's relevant to the site layout itself, is we now have 6 visitor spaces rather than 3. And just as a refresher, there are policy requirements for 2 visitor spaces. So we've got that over provision of visitor spaces that members were looking for. I think I'll leave it there, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, could I invite Sunil Popat, please, to speak on this application? Yes, please, thank you.
Yeah. Good evening, and thank you for coming out on such a cold evening. I don't believe there's anything I can say in the next 3 minutes or even the next 3 hours that will impact the decision which has already been provided in the officer's report. And regardless of the outcome, I want to take this opportunity of thanking, firstly, Stephen Perry, Chairman of the Parish Council, for his help, support and insights into bringing a scheme which the community of Newington now support and welcome. Secondly, I wish to thank Flo, the Planning Officer, for improving and enhancing communications between the local authority and local investors who want to provide quality accommodation for the people of Sile. Finally, and most importantly, I want to show my appreciation to the case officer, Karina Griffiths, who has worked with us over 2.5 years, working whilst operating from home, obtaining, collecting and answering hundreds of emails and questions so that no stone was left overturned, which has allowed her to present and recommend a scheme which does not only meet and exceeds current planning requirements, but a scheme with which the local community welcome whilst creating much needed employment and regeneration. It leads me to show my appreciation to the chair and members of this committee for coming out on this cold evening and for listening to me and for your time in considering this application. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now move the officer recommendation. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jays. Members, Any comments, observations? Councillor Bonny?
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm pleased to see the improvements that have been brought forward, and clearly the applicant has listened to the comments of the committee, including my concerns around the last meeting.
Councillor Hunt?
Yeah, I should be able to pick me up from here. And it's a shame the developer didn't listen to our comments, but I wouldn't have bothered. But the only thing I think is it's good that it has been. It's obviously the committee wanted something different. We've got more spaces than what is in our requirement now. But I just think something that the committee does need to consider is time and time again, we say on this committee that we want good design. And what we've got here on the amendment now is car parking spaces in place of landscaping. We've removed, if we've got on the amendment there, amendments voting for the photo with parking at the end of the road. It's a shame that what the committee has pushed for has now removed that area of landscaping and trees. And I just think it's something we need to be aware of, that if we can start pushing things that try and get away from this car use, we want more people walking and cycling. This is increasing parking spaces and bringing landscaping. It was much better in my view before when we had trees and some landscaping softened that area of some bound. But if that is what the committee want to go for, and rather have more cars there, so be it.
Thank you. And on that note, I also note that Councillor Henderson, who's not with us this evening, was pushing for an increase in contribution towards electrical cycles, which once again developer has done. Yeah, thank you. Members, I don't see anybody else indicating on this one, so those in favour of the officer's recommendation for approval? Those against? Abstentions? So members, that's unanimous. A resolve to grant permission subject to the issue of the decision notice. Just to give you a minute or so to get sorted, I'm now going to jiggle the agenda, and I'm going to take item 3.1 next, if I may. Members, just whilst we're moving to item 3.1, could I ask that when you're indicating whether you're in favour, against, or abstaining, could you please hold your hand nice and clear so our duty mathematicians have a fairer chance of recording it. Thank you. I'm just going to invite our legal officer to speak briefly.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify the position, because I know I said that you could take part and vote, and actually you can't take part and vote. Sorry, I'm having a senior moment. So yes, because you have declared a non-pecuniary interest, you can remain and speak, and then it's going to be quite difficult this evening given our circumstances, but ordinarily you would then need to leave the room while the matter is debated and not take part. At the chair's discretion, if you're happy,
There's no reason why.
you can, as long as you stay in your seat and sort of don't join in. I think we'll have to make a slight arrangement this evening that would be contrary to you leaving the room, because it's a bit tricky. But yeah, just to confirm, with a disclosable interest, you can't take part in the debate and you can't vote.
Okay, thank you. I'll now invite our officer, please, to give us an outline and any updates. Thank you, William.
Loading the presentation. Just bear with me.
Oh.
Just waiting for the steam drive to kick in.
Okay, Chair. Before we get into the hard matter, there's been some updates, and then we're going to see my update note, and also the question that was put to me by one of the ward members, should have been on the website. In terms of updates, the recommendation to refuse now remove reference to the impact on heritage assets. So officers are running with a refusal recommendation purely based on the impact upon the viability of Sheerness in terms of the impact on the town centre. Other issues, you've just seen my summary of a number of neighbour objections, neighbours, community support that we've had in since the publication of the report. We have had more today, but because I've been out on site today, I haven't managed to catch up. Although essentially the support remains as previously from along similar lines in terms of promoting the new store, job creation, and everything else that comes with the new store on this site. The other issue was in respect of, I've seen comments today from Locating Kent, who are supporting the scheme again on the basis of primarily job creation. And I think most members, if not all members, have seen that today. Yeah, so in a nutshell, that's the basis of updates, Chair. So changing the nature of the recommendation, labour support and support from Locating Kent. I think that's everything.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, cool, thank you. The application, Bridge Road Window, so that's a general location. Basically to the north.
Sorry, could I just interject as well? It's quite remiss of me that I haven't announced a reference number for this item, which is 19/502969 full, and of course it is land to the east of Queenborough Road, Queenborough.
Yes,
Thank you.
I'll try and project a bit of a sore throat today, but so this site is red.
It may be helpful if you could come closer to the.
Just if my machine's works.
All right, okay. Yes, it's also the speaker to pick you up as well. William, it's also the speaker will need to pick you up too for people that are joining.
Which will be there.
If you possibly can, it'd be really helpful, yeah. Thank you. Yes, of course.
Strictly come dancing. Right, here we are. Right. Okay, where was I? So this side edge red, northeast of the Morrison's store, and to the north of the existing Aldi RDC, which is, I'll get my cursor working. That's the RDC there, the distribution centre. Queenborough Road running kind of southeast northwest, heritage assets over here, and the nearest house is the White House, which is there. This is the site that's currently under development here. So a few photographs showing the site. This is the view looking northeast towards the landscape boundary with the White House. That's looking back towards the south, towards the Aldi RDC. Morrison's to the southwest. Views towards the retail element to the sort of northeast, I suppose, of Morrison's, and the treed boundary on the right-hand side, which is again to the White House, the White House, not the White House, but the White House. So if you're looking west again towards the retail element, this is the nearest heritage asset, which is at Neates Court Manor, and as said in updates, we are now not referencing impact upon this heritage asset as a reason for refusal. So that's the site edge red. General proposed layout, showing, get my cursor to work, here we go. So another arm off of that roundabout with the store and car parking, and there's a biodiversity enhancement area to the northeast of the car park. Oops, wrong way. Floor plan of the store showing general retail areas and the warehoused areas and staff amenity areas. Location of the store in the wider context, showing the proposals to provide a new cycle footpath link along Queenborough Road, running up towards the Aviator Public House. Proposed elevations of the building and the revisions to the design of the building have resulted in discussions between the various officers of the council. We're now in a position that we're satisfied with the general design and layout of the proposed store. Oops, going the wrong way again. And that's the elevations from the other directions. And this is an enhanced plan, again, showing the general tree planting areas around the site and together with ecological mitigation, particularly within this area here in terms of biodiversity net gain. This is a CGI of the proposed store looking across around the roundabout towards the kind of southwest, I think, yeah. Just in concept, this is the existing store in Sheerness. And again, in context, this is proposed Aldi store here, and this is the site for the new Lidl store here, which is currently under consideration by the council. So just throwing some context of those two sites. That's my presentation, Chair. The recommendation is for refusal on the basis of a single reason only, as set out in updates. We do have colleagues from Lambert Smith Hampton who produced the independent review of the applicant's retail assessment on the call. And I've asked her if she's able to give a brief presentation in terms of her findings in respect of the impact upon Sheerness and its vitality and viability.
Evening, everyone.
There's further contact. Oh, you're there. Thank you. This is fire magic.
I will say that the officer's report gives a really good synopsis of LSH's advice to the council, because this has been quite a long running application, and there's been a lot of back and forth between LSH and Aldi's advisors planning potential. So there's so much detail that's been covered. It's going to be very hard to kind of summarize this down. So I'm just going to stick to really a high level overview, and I would encourage you to really pore over the office's report, which provides so much detail on that. Well, LSH, we were instructed by the council in August 2021 to provide independent advice on the retail planning merits of this application. And this mainly involved appraising the sequential and impact assessments that were prepared by Planning Potential, and that's to support the proposed schemes. And these are the two tests and ultimate tests in the NPPF, and that will be also in local plan policies, which the applicant would be required to meet. Our assessment there were many considerations. I think the main ones I'll just try and summarise here. Aldi's one of 2 food stores serving Sheerness Town Centre, and it's the only main food store that's located right within the core of the town centre. In our view, it has a very important role in supporting Sheerness's town centre economy, and along with Tesco, is the main driver of food expenditure to the town, and that's footfall. This is evidence from the household survey data that was used to inform the council's retail study, and also the findings of a second household survey that informed the applicant's later retail impact assessment. The application site, it's out of centre, and it's next to an established out of centre retail park. It's 2.5 kilometres from the defined primary shopping area in Sheerness, which I think is quite some distance. We're not talking about moving a store to an edge of centre site. This is quite a distance out. The site isn't well served by public transport connections, and unless there is significant investment in bus services, the store will mainly be accessed by private car. As we know, the proposal will facilitate the relocation of Aldi from their current town centre store at Millennium Way. Aldi have put forward a number of reasons to justify their proposed relocation, such as that this current store has a constrained footprint and no longer meets the retailer's day-to-day trading requirements, that car parking capacity is limited, and there's no alternative to increasing the store size, and that a larger store will allow them to invest in the area. Aldi state that they will close their store if planning permission is not granted. However, I find this very, very hard to believe, given that Aldi will be trading very well from the current store, despite the constraints they have. The Isle of Sheppey is a relatively captive market. There's currently no direct competition, as the nearest discount food store is in Sittingbourne. And given all we know in press reports about Aldi and Lidl gaining more customers, especially as we're going through this cost of living crisis, and gaining customers from its competitors, it's even harder to believe that Aldi would close their existing store without a continuity store in place. It's unheard of. I don't know of any examples of where this has happened. Just moving on to the sequential and impact tests themselves. I'm not going to dwell on the sequential test. We were satisfied that there were no alternative sites that could accommodate the proposed scheme, even when we asked Aldi to demonstrate flexibility in format and scale. That's one of the requirements that they have to pass. Moving on to the impact test, our appraisal of the applicant's impact assessment, it raised a number of queries, and I mentioned before we went back and forth on a few things that related to the methodology that was used, various assumptions that informed the impact assessment, and ultimately we ended up with a new household survey. And we took a number of considerations into account when we were looking at impact, and looking at a kind of baseline of how Sheerness was performing. A health check assessment was undertaken by Planning Potential, and that kind of assessed how the towns are performing. And we also did our own review of uses, how things have changed there, and ultimately we concluded that Sheerness Town Centre at the time of reporting was performing adequately, not good, but just adequately, but that it will be vulnerable to changes in its retail offer. And as I mentioned before, food retail is underpinning the town's economy. So we have concerns about this reducing down and the impact that would ensue. So Aldi and Planning for Potential, they argue that the relocation or displacement of the turnover that is captured by the Aldi's town centre store does not represent an impact. That was a key point of disagreement, I think, in our appraisals. We believe that this turnover forms part of the town's overall economy, and it represents expenditure that's captured by the town and that could move between different stores and supports link trips with other businesses. The level of impact that would result from Aldi relocating to the application site, in our view, is extremely high. It would result in over 40% of the town's food retail turnover being lost, and over a fifth of the town's overall retail turnover being lost. And these are extremely high figures. I've been doing appraisals for a long time, and I haven't seen figures this high in quite some time. And I believe the loss of turnover, we did model, or Planning Potential did look at, what would be the impact, how would it change if we take account of Home Bargains taking on the unit, which we know, which based on evidence provided to us, would happen only on the basis of vacant possession. So it's not a done deal. It's only if Aldi vacate their unit. And when this was modelled in, it only reduced the impact slightly, because they're two very different retailers. I would say, Aldi is a very dominant brand, very strong brand, and while Home Bargains is a great brand and a good one for the town to have, it's not a substitute for losing Aldi. If we were to take Aldi's word and they close their store in the event of planning permission not being granted, then we do accept that this would have an adverse impact on vitality and viability of Sheerness Town Centre. But under this scenario, there would be a greater potential for town centre retailers to capture that expenditure that would have been Aldi's turnover or expenditure, and so that the balance of impact, I think, would be lower. In contrast, facilitating the relocation of Aldi from its town centre site to an established and out of centre retail area some distance away can only lead to what we believe to be a significant adverse impact on Sheerness's vitality and viability, and at a time when town centre economies are increasingly vulnerable. And it's for those reasons that we advise planning officers to refuse planning permission.
Okay, thank you. Could I now invite Graham Sargent, please, to speak on this item?
Yes.
Could I just request that you come to the front, please? It's just it's purely a housekeeping issue we've got, so we need you to speak to that, so that people online can hear too. Thank you.
I mean, from what that speaker just said, I mean, I don't know where they get the idea that vitality and whatever it was has anything to do with Sheerness High Street. I mean, the lady obviously hasn't been there. To say that there's going to be a massive impact on retail use by Aldi moving, I find bizarre. I mean, I actually did an exercise of walking around the high street 2 days ago, freezing myself to death. There's roughly 130 retail units in that high street area, including the adjacent Broadway bit. With regard to, Tesco's has been the main objector to this, which I find, again, they try and portray that they're concerned about the shopping centre or the town centre. Tesco's are only concerned with their own interests, and they always have been. The main number of shops in the high street, it consists of 16 cafe or takeaways, 16. I mean, you know, if you want to go anywhere to eat, certainly Sheerness is the place. There's 6 hair and beauty shops, 5 nail shops, 6 men's hairdressers, 3 ladies hairdressers, 6 charity shops, 3 betting shops. I mean, I won't go the whole list because it's, and that, I mean, 3 tattoo parlours, 5 estate agents. There's 7 empty units. There's also a double unit occupied by the council, the Gateway Office stroke library. You know, was any consideration given to the demise of the high street when the council took over a prime retail site? I don't suppose it was. As people have said, sort of, I think it's fair that if this planning application is rejected, Aldi is likely to leave, simply because it's, you know, they're running a store at the moment that isn't economical in terms of what they could do. So if that was to happen, that would deprive Islanders of a retailer with a proven record of lower prices than other large national supermarkets. And that can't be good for a population with a considerable amount of unemployment and amongst the highest percentage per capita of claimants of universal credit in Kent. This also means that without that store, where incomes are a premium
That's
for people.
3 minutes.
Yeah, that won't take much longer.
You can't, unfortunately. It's 3 minutes is your time.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Okay, can I invite Sam Shepherd, please, to speak on this item?
Let me know when I.
Yeah, when you're ready, Sam.
Oh, good evening. I'm Sam. I'm speaking on behalf of Aldi as property director. Naturally, we are disappointed and indeed extremely concerned by the recommendation to reject this significant investment in Sheppey and the profound knock-on implications that this would have. Members will be aware that this application was previously approved at committee, only to be derailed following anti-competitive actions of Tesco, whom, it should be noted, are the only retailer from Sheerness Town Centre to have objected to the proposals. Unfortunately, we cannot continue to trade in our Sheerness store. It is too small, we cannot extend it, the store will close, and this impact will happen regardless of the outcome of this application. The decision has been made, it is not linked to this application. Our only option is to relocate, and the Neats Court site allows this to happen, as well as creating an additional 20 new jobs. Not only that, we have secured a replacement national retailer in Home Bargains to trade from our existing store, meaning there will be no impact on trade in the town centre to warrant refusal of this application, and will also create a further 30 jobs. That's 50 new jobs on Sheppey at a time when they are needed most. Furthermore, our proposals include a new access that will help deliver more of the regeneration area, as well as a new footpath and cycleway along Queensborough Road, which will deliver benefit to hundreds of new homes and businesses coming forward as part of the area's expansion plans. We draw attention to the committee report, and in particular the evidence we've provided demonstrating that the potential impacts alleged by the council's consultants are significantly overestimated. They have overestimated our existing store sales by 70%, and we have offered to legally prove that the figures are misleading. It's completely incorrect and fundamentally misleads the conclusions reached. The stark reality is that refusal of the application places new jobs, new infrastructure, and the cycle lane in jeopardy, and means there will be no more Aldi on Sheppey, which is completely inappropriate in the midst of a cost of living crisis. Planning policy places significant weight in favour of proposals such as ours that deliver economic growth. The recommendation alleges that relocation could have an adverse impact, but it is a fact that refusal will have a disastrous impact. We respectfully request that members pay regard to the overwhelming support for the scheme by 800 local residents who have registered their support for the scheme online, and we respectfully request that members approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I now move the officer recommendation. Could I have a second, please? Yeah, well, you should have done, Councillor Fowles. Ah, okay. That's fine, then you may.
Yeah. Do you want me to come up there or?
Yes, please, thank you.
Been in and out of hospital, so that's what I think, obviously. I've got an operation in 8 hours.
Got something.
There's a deep outside, so.
All the hot bodies in here.
We open a window, tiny bit, just to get some ventilation.
Our town.
So I think that's. Yes. On my own.
Right. Okay. Councillor Fowle, as the ward member, would you like to address
Yeah.
the committee? Thank you.
I'd like to speak on behalf of this proposal. I mean, as a council, we've been bleating on about a levelling up bid for investment, yet we have companies ready to invest and we are turning them down in the most deprived areas in Kent. We've got job creation in both Queenborough and Sheerness, as they said earlier, up to 50 jobs, which are desperately needed at the moment. The shops in Sheerness, as the earlier gentleman said, they're not going to be impacted by Aldi. I don't believe Aldi cuts hairs or sells clothing. Hove Bargains, many people from the island drive to Hove Bargains at Sittingbourne at the moment. It is very popular. The impact, I just think, is illogical. There is actually extra food places to what the lady said. There's the Co-op and Iceland serving as well. Tesco's advert campaign is they price match Aldi, so I don't see what their issue is. But if Tesco's are so concerned, should they not stop selling magazines to stop people going to Fitch's, or clothes for New Look, or Bon Marche, which had to go? Britton and Hobbs were lost because they sold electronics. Fishmongers, butchers all left because Tesco signed up. LSH are employed on various schemes by Tesco's. Is there a separation between the staff that work on this and work for Tesco's? How many of these people actually shopped in Sheerness recently? What have you bought? What shops did you go to? And finally, I would ask, I'm not sure if it's appropriate, if the committee may ask for a recorded vote so we can see who really wants to invest in the islands and who does not. Thank you.
Thank you. I now move the officer recommendation. Could I have a seconder, please?
Well, we open the debate, because Councillor Darwin speaking, we can't take part in the debate.
No, I must admit, even though I've declared what supposedly is in the minutes, I've been supporting this of the LD plan anyway.
Thank you.
Only other ward member, and I think all issues to be raised have already been raised in the discussion. Of nothing else.
Yeah, we have moved the recommendation, Councillor Martin, so
Sure.
you are a committee member, so, okay. Thank you, Councillor Jays. So, Councillor Beer.
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to pick up on the comment from the consultant about the 1 of 2 food stores serving the Sheerness Town Centre. As Councillor Fowle said, that's fundamentally not true. We also have a Co-op supermarket and an Iceland supermarket in the high street. I must admit, I don't envy the officer. You can clearly see that despite the report, this is pretty much a balanced knife-edge decision. And I think that is shown by the fact that we've only got one reason for refusal. And I think that, as has been alleged already, you can start picking holes in that. And actually, you then start thinking, what side of the fence do you come down on? The NPPF says that we're supposed to give significant weight to economic development. And this is part of our regen policy. This whole area, the Queenborough Rushenton regeneration area, has been on our books since the mid-2000s. And it's taken this long to actually get development here. And as Councillor Bell said, we've got companies who are prepared to invest. So I do give that considerable weight. In terms of the impact on Sheerness High Street, I go back to when we debated this previously and we took a decision to approve. And I think what has changed since we made that decision? Well, actually, at the time when we made that decision, there was concerns raised at the committee that if we approved it, the Aldi store could sit empty because we didn't know what the future was. Well, now they've come forward and said, well, actually, we've already signed someone up to take on this store. And a lot of the thing in the retail assessment is that people park in Aldi and then go into town. I would say people park in Aldi and then maybe nip across to the market on a Tuesday or on a Saturday. People don't go into the town from Aldi. They simply don't. As it stands, and I'm remain open-minded and happy to listen to the debate, but as it stands, I'm likely to go against the officer's recommendation. I welcome the investment.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, please.
Chair, it is a difficult one. I think as a committee, obviously, there is a lot of public support for this one. I think it was mentioned there was 800 comments of support on the application. I think I've had 800 emails the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Probably from me.
But we can't be governed by what opinions. We have to be keeping it as per the policies that we've got. And what has been said in the appraisal that we've got from consultants. In that, I've not disputed anything in there. It does show that there is going to be a severe impact. And when we heard that from one of the speakers, from the consultant, there's no doubt about it. It is going to be an impact. We can't approve it just because people want it. But in the very final paragraph of that report, does say that whilst it is going to cause an impact on the town centre, it's for us as decision makers to make that final decision on the balance. And it's that balance is that difficult thing, because there's obvious detrimental impact here, but there is a massive amount of positives for it. And whilst we can't take the view of members of the public, it does show that there is a big support and how people will be using the store. Something I don't think has been picked up really throughout this is the mainland. It's all been focused on the islands. I've actually had people from the mainland saying that they want this as well and they will be using it. And I think if we start looking as well as, I'll take Highway as an example, we approved recently another 400 houses there. It's had a massive amount of development, but North West Sittingbourne, those people for the location that this is going to be moving to is actually going to be easier from North Sittingbourne to get to this location. That is going to help with traffic in Sittingbourne town centre as well. And they're not going to be having to travel through the town centre. So that's just another layer of impact that is a benefit I can see with having this here. It isn't just focused on the islands. And those residents that would be doing that wouldn't be ones that are going through to Sheerness at the moment and using an Aldi store. I think personally, on balance, I don't agree with the officer's recommendation. I think there is enough benefit from this to be able to take it and get approval at that site. If Home Bargains wasn't going to be going into the site, and if Aldi wasn't going to pull out, and I've no doubt that they would pull out. I've been into the store myself in Sheerness, and it's not good. You can just tell just walking around there, it just doesn't work. So I've no doubt that they will pull out. If it was going to be an empty site, there would be more of an impact. Home Bargains is a slightly different store to what just a wholly food store is. But they do food stuff as well. And I don't think enough consideration has been given to that. So I think because of all of that, the balance for me, I won't be done the opposite recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Winters, please.
I have 2 points actually. First of all, there was a diagram shown, I believe, of the, if we was to go against the officer recommendation, the access. Have you got any photographic evidence of where the proposed access road would be into this, please?
Showing the access to you, Chair, of this new arm coming off the roundabout. You can see my cursor there. That's where the access is going. And then looping round towards store car parking areas.
Okay, thank you. My second point, I think, is already covered. With the road layout, I mean, in that area, it's basically a 3-lane road, which basically is under capacity traffic present time in my view. And as I said, I think the previous speaker said, there probably would be customer or traffic movement from City Hall on the A249 going north, which at the moment is not getting congested, for example, dual carriageway road. So I can't really see that there will be big issues, traffic flow movements. So at the moment, I am tempted to try to go against the opposite recommendation for reviews and go for reviews, and also just quickly, it will create some jobs, which basically, as I've already been said, is actually fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, anybody else? Councillor Bonny, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This is finely balanced, I have to say. I was on the previous committee, and I remember discussing in quite some detail about pedestrian access, cycling and walking, because I think we weren't entirely convinced that that was a safe route. So if somebody maybe want to clarify that. But in terms of the impact on Sheerness, I am really concerned about that. The council has undertaken quite a considerable amount of work over the last couple of years to tidy up the high street, renovate the clock tower, etc. It is an important town centre, it's the main town centre for the island. And it is important that its vitality and viability is ensured and not depleted. And I certainly understand what the consultant was telling us in terms of sequential test. And I think this application, we're in the middle of supermarket wars, quite frankly, with opposing supermarkets pulling at both sides on the council. Whatever decision is made tonight, no doubt it will be reviewed either judicially or through an inspection, whatever. So I think whichever decision is made, there's no clear route out. I have to say, probably more on the side of the high street and keeping the footfall as much as we can in town. I think quite honestly, Tesco's is so enormous that actually has had over the years a fundamental impact. So it's somewhat ironic that we end up in this situation, given Tesco stores have done to the high street. But our high street has, over the period of COVID, compared to many other town centres, Sheerness High Street as well as elsewhere high streets, done reasonably well. We've got reasonably low vacancy rates compared to other towns. So I certainly wouldn't want to see that escalate in any way by something the council has done. So at the moment, I will listen to the rest of it.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think we're looking at, as everyone said, it is a very nice issue. But But as we have heard from the representatives of Albion, the assumptions made in our consultant report are based on facts which are not accurate. If they are able to prove that the information has been overestimated by 70%, that's a completely nonsensical report that has nothing to do with what's sitting in front of us. From a retail perspective, the Aldi store in Sheerness does not work. It is not of the right size or dimensions anymore for a discount retailer who relies on stocking in bulk, pile it high and sell it cheap for their business model. I mean, wage costs are rising and therefore you need to sell more of that cheap stock in order to facilitate the viability of that particular business. They have shown us that they will bring in an alternative retailer, one which does attract people from other towns into areas. That will help the high street. It also does not take into account within this report the fact that the Aldi store would be giving up its convenience location. How many trips are actually because someone happens to be in the town centre at the moment and that's the easiest place for them to get a pint of milk? Do I go to Tesco's, the little shop, or do I go to Aldi because it's cheaper? The relocation merely diverts where that's going. Those trips aren't going to result in someone hopping in their car and going out to Queenborough. They're still going to go to the nearest shop for their pint of milk. Frankly, I think it's been overcomplicated. We're here because a big supermarket feared competition and took us to judicial review. No doubt they'll do the same again if we go against the officer decision tonight. And no doubt, as Councillor Bonney stated, if we go with the officer decision tonight, it will go to the inspectorate. We're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. I think the people of Sheppey deserve investment. I think this is private investment in an area that has already been allocated for regeneration. I think the report overstates the potential impact on Sheerness High Street. I think we have ample reasons to go against the officer recommendation and approve tonight and actually see those 50 jobs, which are relatively well paying jobs for the retail sector, delivered in Sheppey and the investment delivered in Sheppey.
Thank you. Councillor Jervis, please.
Thank you, Chair. A lot of what I wanted to say will be covered, which still. As the Speaker said, the turnover in the report's wrong. There is additional food stores in the high street, such as Carp and Iceland's. And as the Speaker said, the fact that only one Sheerness retailer, Tesco, has been rejected to this, it speaks volumes. We should be approving this for the jobs. We should be approving this for the economic development. We have a cost of living crisis and the island needs this. We have the Barnes Hill development, unfortunately, to come. And this store being walking distance. I think this is a good choice for the island. And it's a good choice for the borough.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen, please.
Thank you, Chair. We're talking about the impact on the town centre. What about the impact on the people of Sheppey and Sheerness? That we declined an opportunity for another store to come into another choice for themselves. I did hear from one of the speakers say that there's a very diverse selection of retailers in the high street, none of which have been impacted by Aldi as it stands at the moment. And I can't see how Home Bargains would impact on that. I feel the whole impact is going to be on the actual customers and those living around that still want an Aldi, but want a better Aldi. And this is a great opportunity, I think. And it's not in the town centre. They said it's nearly 2 miles away. So the impact, I don't think, is going to be that great on Tesco's, who apparently are the only ones that are going against this. And I can say now that I will be going against this recommendation.
Thank you.
More of an impact of McDonald's.
Members, okay, I don't see anybody else indicating it. I'm just going to bring our head of planning in from my.
Just to members, if you vote to overturn the officer recommendation, please be very clear about the reasons you're making the decision that you're making. If you overturn the officer recommendation, there's another vote, isn't there, after that?
Yes.
If you vote to approve this application, you need to be very clear the reasons why you're approving it. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's got to be a legal officer in as well. I'll come to you in a second.
Yeah, I just to reinforce what the head of planning has said, you'll all be familiar with the Dover CPRE case and the public interest test that the courts held would be important where there's an officer recommendation, where you're looking at something like this, that there's a big public interest. There's no statutory duty on you to give reasons, but it is in this sort of instance suggested that that would be advisable. So that's just to reinforce what the head of planning has said. If you are minded not to go with the officer's recommendation and that vote is lost, I think we would need to start clarifying and crystallising what those reasons are, taken from the debate that you've had so far. There may be some further debate to pick up on some of those items. I just want to as well just quickly highlight a couple of points in terms of policy. The officer's report is clear that the policy for this particular part of the site is not for retail, it's actually for different class of employment use. So this is technically contrary to your local plan policy. And whilst I completely agree with you that the NPPF does encourage economic growth and economic development, it's also clear in respect of impacts on town centres that when you're looking at out of town or out of centre development such as this, that's not in accordance with your local plan policy, that there is a requirement to do the retail impact assessment. And if you don't have a locally set threshold, the default threshold is 2,500 square metres of floor space. We have council's opinion that there has been a decision taken by this council to consider a lower threshold of 500 square metres. So we are definitely in RIA territory. And where that RIA concludes that there is an impact on the town centre and its viability and vitality, that the application should be refused. However, the Court of Appeal has also held, it's quite a good decision because it is in the Court of Appeal, that the wording should be refused is not mandatory. It doesn't mean must be refused. It puts it to you as the decision maker to weigh the balance. And that will always be, so long as you do it reasonably, rationally and lawfully, your decision, the courts will not interfere with it. So that takes us full circle back to the need to give those reasons, particularly in light of comments that Councillor Bonney has made and others about the likely review of whatever decision you make, be that through Section 78 in appeal or be that through a legal challenge in the courts. The council's case, its defence in any of those challenges will be formulated from your reasons for the decision you make this evening. So I would really just advocate that we get those decisions and those reasons really clearly set down and minuted this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Beard.
I was just going to accept Councillor Bowles' suggestion and propose that it will be voted.
Thank you. Okay, members. So the decision we're making at the moment is those in favour of the officer recommendation to refuse the application. So those in favour of refusing, could you show me your hands, please? Good point. Thank you. Well made. So, first of all, then, Councillor Beard.
Against.
Councillor Bonney.
Or
Councillor Darby. You're not, you're abstaining. And, sorry, yeah, Councillor McCall.
Against.
Councillor Eakin. Councillor Hall.
Against.
Councillor Henderson. Not here. Councillor Hunt.
Against.
Councillor Jays.
Against.
Councillor Marchington,
Against.
Councillor Martin,
Against.
Councillor Rolls,
Against.
Councillor Simmons,
For.
Councillor Stephen,
Against.
Councillor Valentine,
Against.
Councillor Winkles,
Against.
and finally myself against. So that's 13 against, 2 for, and we've got 1 abstention and 1 absent in terms of Councillor Darby. So that motion is lost. I'll note to Councillor Beard then for.
I would like to move that we approve the application subject, or delegate to officers to approve, subject to conditions and suitably worded section 106 agreement. And I would suggest that if we're looking for conditions, 1 to 35 in the previous report would be sufficient.
Yeah, no, there's no need for the 106 until Councillor Beard. So,
Happy second, Chair.
thank you, Councillor Jays. Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, happy to speak to that. I completely agree with that. And I think that the reasons for me are what I said during the day. The balance of this is what there is, and what's listed in the report is well listed. What the positive outcome, positivity from this will come from. It is recognised that there is that negative impact, and the retail assessment that we've got does clearly show that. But for the job creation, having the own bargains going into the site and not having an empty site, that will increase the retail, increase jobs, and there is some of the consideration on traffic impacts as well within there. I think all of that positive effect on that is the, for me, of the unmeasured balance, like people up is the reason why we approving something or other than for other stuff that we can do.
Yeah, Councillor Beard.
I'm happy to build on that and just say, obviously, it's not just the store, that there are wider benefits to this. For example, the footpath cycleway that is being proposed, that will bring wider public benefit, and as has been alluded to, will provide walking between Minster and Queenborough. And I think that is something that we should be considering in terms of active travel. I think that although I completely take the point of the legal officer about this particular plot is in our regen policy for a different type of employment use, the overall aim of the Queenborough and Rushington regen policy is to bring economic development to this area. And I think this does accord with that. And I think the aim is exactly what we should be aiming for, to bring employment opportunities into this area. And I think that, as Councillor Hunt said, we do accept that there is some identified harm, but I think it is outweighed by the public benefit.
Okay, thank you. So I think in a nutshell, we're kind of looking at the social, the economic benefits
of the schemes.
The schemes as a whole. Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm just going to bring Mr. Gregory in, yes.
Yeah, hello, I'm Paul Gregory. I'm the area plan officer for Faversham and the surrounding rural areas now, but previous to that, I was an officer in the majors team and had a lot of involvement in this scheme. I just wanted to point out to members that we can't give any weight to home bargains and the employment generation of that on the basis that it's there's nothing in this application that would require home bargains to take on the vacant store. So I think the direction should be towards the job creation created by the new Aldi rather than the home bargains.
Thank you. Councillor Beard.
I will add one more bit that I've just thought of. The access road that is being proposed for this
will also provide the access road for the adjacent site, which is also in our regen policy for economic development.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt?
Just a question on that one, because I sort of understand that. Is there any way that we can, given we say there was no section 106 needed now, but if there is a section 106, to ensure that there is a legal agreement in place for home bargains?
So I'll just bring our head of planning on this one.
Just a question, is it a?
Sorry, our legal officer.
Yes, it's a commercial decision. It's not something that you could legally require. I mean, section 106 you would use to secure policy compliant obligations and things, but there is no policy nationally, locally that absolutely requires home bargains to move into that store. It will be a matter for the current owner of the store to negotiate. And it might be such that in the fullness of time, we've had the pandemic, we've had the issues in the high street that have been resultant from that. Nobody predicted that was going to happen. And it might be that the commercial realities of the next few years, when the recession, if it comes with the changing nature of the high street and so on and so forth, somebody like Home Bargains might change their business profile. They might go into liquidation, who knows? And if you then have a legal agreement that is enforceable by the courts through an injunction that would require Home Bargains to take that site on, that just wouldn't be reasonable. It wouldn't meet the Section 106 tests. But I can understand what your thinking is and what your rationale for that. But all we can do really is put some hope value on that. There's nothing more really that we could do. You couldn't do that with a legal agreement.
It's more a case of just being reasonably wording that, knowing that is likely to take place. It's not something we can be making a complete decision on, but that is actually absolutely.
Yeah, and we've obviously got representatives from ASI in the room with us this evening, and I can see they're sort of listening and they're nodding.
It's been said, and we just need to.
I think you just need to accept, accept that. We can't mandate it.
I think that's what I understand.
Councillor Body, please.
Well, following on from that, the thought occurred to me that.
Can you just speak a little bit?
Sorry, following on from that, the thought occurred to me that actually they might actually require change of use on existing LD to sort that out. No, it's not, it's retail, it's an open retail. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Johnson. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. We obviously heard about our, this is against our own policies, but obviously our local plan is out of date. Given COVID, I think it's extremely out of date. The last few years, I think this is the right use for this site, and it supports employment, so I think we have to support it.
Okay. Councillor Valentine.
I think there are good grounds to believe that the report that's been put for us tonight exaggerates the impact on Sheerness Town Centre. We can point to the issue that Aldi have raised about their trading being exaggerated in the report, and also the fact they appear to have missed 2 stores from Sheerness Town Centre, Iceland, the co-op. I think also we can point to our experience in Faversham, where we had a very similar situation with an new Audi store, much closer to the town centre, and about half a mile out of the town centre. And I have to say, I think my memory is that I voted against that, and because I was worried about the impact on the vitality of the town centre. But that's been there in trading for a few years, and I don't think we have seen an impact on the vitality of Faversham from that Aldi store. So I think we can point to our own experience in making arriving at our judgment.
Thank you. So we've got the proposal duly seconded then to grant permission. To result of grant permission, subject to the delegation to officers.
Can we continue the theme of the full debate, Mr. Chairman?
You just sound a word harder, aren't you? That's all it is.
Excellent. Just want to get you behind light.
Yeah. Okay, so this is those in favour of approval. Councillor Beard. Councillor Bonny.
I think we all done.
Right, Councillor McCall.
No.
Councillor McCall.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Eakin. Councillor Hall. Councillor Henderson, not here. Councillor Hunt.
For.
Councillor Jays.
For.
Councillor Marchington.
For.
Councillor Martin.
For.
Councillor Rolls.
For.
Councillor Simmons.
Same.
Councillor Stephen.
For.
Councillor Valentine.
For.
Councillor Winkles.
For.
Councillor Bonny. And myself, for. So we've got 14 for, 1 against, 1 abstention, and we've got 1 member absent. So permission is granted subject to, sorry,
Sorry, Chair, conditions.
members, please.
Conditions. Obviously, members previously approved the scheme on this site. From memory, we talked before, but I think the conditions are robust and applicable as much now as it was then. Is that my understanding? Paul?
Yeah, I mean, without having them in front of me, they're likely, well, there'll possibly be a limited number that will need tweaking, possibly in relation to the off-site highway works. But aside from that, I'd say that the majority would be as applicable now as then.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring Councillor Beard back in because he actually raised this.
Yeah, that was, I did specify we would delegate to officers, and I think conditions 1 to 35, like you say, are robust and they might need tweaking, but I think they are pretty much there or thereabouts.
Okay, thank you. So permission is granted, subject to the issue of decision notice and the delegated conditions. Okay, members, going to jump back in time again then, if we may please, to item 2.2. That's now, I'll just let me know so I can get there before.
Hi, Chair, I've got a long journey home.
I appreciate the time. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
You're right in off. Yeah. Speaking So just waiting the return of council. Just a few minutes. Is that why I think health and safety?
And that's what I was going about. Anyone that
Okay, members, I think we'll press on. We're still waiting for Councillor Stephen to return, but unfortunately he'll be unable to vote. Okay, so it's item 2.2 then, which is reference 22/503/623 full. And this one's Huxhall Farm, School Lane, Borden, ME9 8DA. I thank you also for an outline and any updates, please.
Thank you, Chairman. In terms of an update, if members are minded to go with the officer recommendation for approval, then I would like to recommend an additional condition which removes PD rights for any additional boundary treatment on the site. That's missing from the report, but what I'd recommend is added. In terms of the application, it's a retrospective application for the change of use of an agricultural building to storage and distribution. And in terms of the site, red line shows the site outline, and the building is effectively here. I'll just move actually to the last slide, which is a bit clearer in terms of that. Here's the building in question. And the rest of the site is effectively hard standing around here. And then there's two existing access points which are not proposed to be altered in any way. Here's the front elevation of the building. Here's one of the access points which comes off School Lane. Here's the second access point. It's wider than that. There's another gate which is not shown in the photograph, but here's the building here. There are these steel barriers which make up part of the frontage of the site, and members will no doubt have seen from the report that there's, as part of the proposals, there's conditions requiring the painting of those a dark green, some planting to go next to those barriers, as well as some other planting on the site, which I'll show in a bit more detail on one of the other drawings. Here's more of the existing hard standing on the site, and then this final photograph shows the site. This is the corner of the site here, and this is looking down School Lane towards Chestnut Street. In terms of the landscaping, which I was just referring to, as well as planting along the frontage to help soften that steel barrier, there's also planting proposed along this boundary here and along this boundary here. It's worth pointing out that the conservation area runs adjacent to the site here, so it's felt that this planting will help soften what is it's quite an industrial appearance at the moment, so it's to try and help soften that. This is that's a floor plan of the building. I don't think we need to spend too much time on that. It's a storage use, so it's just basically a building which will store goods. And again, if you can see the red line, yeah, the red line on there, that is the conservation area which runs around the site. So yeah, officers consider that the proposal is in accordance with both local and national policies in respect of giving support to businesses in the rural area and the diversification of farms. It is considered that the proposal would not give rise to harm to residential amenities or highway safety or convenience, and would preserve the setting of the conservation area. And for those reasons, officers recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I now invite John Collins, please, to speak on this item?
Thank you, Chairman. Am I okay to start?
Yeah, when you're ready.
Thank you. You've got a very full report, and you also had a further introduction. My first comment is fully understand why the officer has suggested the additional condition about boundary treatments. Entirely reasonable in my view. As you're aware, it is a former agricultural building. I think what is interesting when you looked at the photograph that the officer showed is you couldn't really see activity on the site, and that's obviously the officer's own photograph, but the building is in fact already in use, and the nature of the storage that's in there has been taking place for at least the last 2 years or so. And I think because of that, it is pretty clear that it hasn't actually given rise to either visual or other amenity concerns locally. Chairman, I'm not going to take any more time really, other than just to say there's been a lot of debate this evening, quite rightly, on promotion of commercial uses, promotion of jobs. This is a local business and it's supporting local jobs if you were to support your officer's recommendation, and I do advocate that you do that. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll now move the officer recommendation. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. Members? Councillor Pearce.
I just wanted to comment that I give very good weight to the report from KCC Highways. As has been suggested, I mean, this is already a farm building. They can have HGV movements, they can have tractors in and out all times of day and night. I don't think that the parish council's comments quite weigh up. So I'll be supporting the officer recommendation.
Thank you. Members, anybody else wish to comment? Okay, we'll move this one straight to. Yeah, I'll be announcing that. Move this one to the vote, and we vote in for the officer recommendation with additional condition. Those in favour? That's unanimous, members. It was so good to see Councillor Darby's hand raised. For the first time this evening. Thank you. Thank you very much. Second time process. Members, we're now going to jump to item 2.4. And that's 22/502/600 and it is number 6 Colchett Close, East Church, ME12 4ST. And I'll thank Joseph for an outline and any updates, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. This is an application to extend property at number 6 Colchett Close. It's within the built confines of East Church as part of the Kingsborough Manor estate. And the estate is characterised by large detached dwellings. Through the pictures and the plans. So this is the existing property. With a detached old garage. Again, more pictures showing the same plan form of the property, elevations, and then we've got the existing and proposed layout plans here, and the application is to create a link extension between the main house and the garage. And that link extension is described as a 1.5 storey extension, which is essentially with the first floor partly in the roof space. And the application also proposes to increase the height of the garage by approximately 1.2 metres and to erect 2 dormer windows in the front elevation. As you can see from here, the proposal would allow for large extension to the kitchen and provide a utility area. And on the first floor, a master bedroom with dressing room and ensuite. These are the elevations. So this is the link extension of the what's called the 1.5 story extension, which is essentially has a low eaves or a lower eaves and a lower ridge height. With the majority of the accommodation at first floor level within the first floor, within the roof space. The garage essentially stays single story in form, but with a taller roof and the 2 dormers at the front. The application also proposes some other minor works to make some amendments to the front entrance to the dwelling and a fence at the side of the property here with a brick wall. Just for so members can see how the application has evolved. This is what we first had put to us, and officers raised significant concern about the scale of the extension in terms of both its impact on the house itself, street scene, and impact on neighbours. I'll take you back to the elevations as amended. We are now happy that those elevations show a much more subservient extension, and that is far more in keeping with the existing property and street scene, and in our view has an impact on neighbours, but in our view it has an acceptable impact. If I go back to the site plan, in terms of the relationship with neighbouring properties, the 2 main affected properties, are number 5 Courtship Close here, and there's a distance of 11 metres that's maintained between this property and the garage. Obviously, bearing in mind that the garage is still fundamentally a single structure in form, and the other property that is closest is this property here, which is number 7 Courttree Drive. There is approximately 15.5 metres from the main rear wall of that dwelling to the extension. They do have a conservatory, so at that point there it reduces to about 11.5 metres in distance. The larger element of the extension is obviously the infill, which is slightly to one side of this property. The main outlet from that property will be towards the garage, and our view is that the increase in height of the garage does not result in an unacceptable loss of outlook or amenity to that property or to number 5. As such, the recommendation is for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I invite Stephen please to speak on this one?
Yeah, hi, thank you very much. Yeah, hi, look, I haven't got sexy charts or anything, so you'll just have to put up with me. So just with regards to the proposed plan application, I'd like to raise the following points. Firstly, look, I fully understand that like they want to extend their property and all that kind of stuff, yeah. But I suppose for me, where I sit and where my neighbours sit, it's kind of the size and the height, the fact that it's 2-storey going above the garages. I suppose on the first point, there's been no communication between the applicants and the residents surrounding the property as to the scale and the size of the proposal. No conversation has taken place with regards to any suitable compromise that could be reached between. Basically, we've had 2 sets of plans put online, and basically there's been no conversation about what might be acceptable or what is wanted, such as maybe a gable roof, so that put on the design, or some other type that would kind of perhaps lessen the impact, but obviously keeping design with the character of the properties, or maybe agree that the link's fine and kind of not go over the garages. The objections to the plans for both sets of plans are virtually identical, both from the residents and the council. So basically, what was been objected to the first one was exactly the same as the second time. And basically, therefore, nothing's really been addressed by the revised plan because the objections are still exactly the same. Nobody's been none of the neighbours, like I myself, has been contacted to be able to see, I suppose, from our point of view, what the impact actually is. So nobody's actually come and looked out the front or the back of the properties up here to see what the proposed extension and the impact that the build will have. And whilst in the reports it talks about sort of 11 metres, 15.5 metres, actually really look out at what the real view is, because it's totally different to the reality of having to live with it, which the officer won't have to. So just on point 8.1, the report talks about numbers. So I suppose if that's what we're talking about, then the rules or the planning rules dictate that a two-storey development should not be as close as it should be. So it should be 2 metres from the side boundary. So why do we think it's acceptable to be within 0.7 of my boundary and 1.5 of the Courttree house? And the reason that the garage is there is because it's a single height structure. It's never intended to be built on. As Jones Homes would have realised that this would have a negative impact on the surrounding properties it was trying to sell as an executive development. So why are we not sticking to the rules? Because, they can say, I think the guy said earlier, that he's saying it's a single height. It's not. It's got 2 floors on it. It's got an underneath and the top. That's 2 stories. And basically, that shouldn't therefore be allowed to be within 2 metres of the boundary of the property.
That's 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Can I invite Roy Troop, please, to speak on this one? I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, thank you. Roy Troop, speaking on behalf of the applicant. Firstly, we'd like to acknowledge and thank the case officer for recommending the application for approval subject to conditions. The original application has been amended significantly in line with previous conversations and comments and thoughts from Megan Harris, the case officer. We are now in a position whereby the proposal satisfies policy and guidance according to the case officer's report. This is the 6th revision, which is evident of the extensive discussions we've had with the planning officer who's visited site on 2 occasions. We agree that case officer's comments to the most recent scheme, PL03 revision F and PL04 revision D, would be subservient in scale and design and would not cause significant harm to the character or visual amenities of the area. The conversion of the garage is also acceptable due to ample parking available on site. We acknowledge the objections received predominantly came from the original application, having now amended the plan so considerably. With these in mind, both ourselves and the case officer seem to be jointly satisfied that the objections are not planning based or haven't taken into account the new amendments. In relation to the 4 neighbouring property households that have offered comments objecting to the proposal, we'd like to comment as below. The outbuilding constructed under permitted development has no bearing on this application, and Megan Harris has been to site and confirmed this is within guidance. The proposal is entirely in keeping with existing property in terms of detailing, materials and appearance. The proposal is not a 2-storey link. The extension is 1.5 stories as recognised by the case officer and a basic understanding of construction. The latest revisions will not result in overshadowing or loss of light due to substantial distances to neighbouring properties and the orientation of the sun. The fact the existing building runs north to south and is higher level than the extension means overshadowing will not be no greater than existing. The objection was submitted with no evidence or technical data to support the claim, unlike our response. The impact on the neighbours' outlook is significantly less than the original proposal. Reference to the latest drawings being 2-storey are incorrect and out of date. The direct look in question is in fact single-storey garage section, which is as existing. The new rear-facing windows have the same outlook as the original property, and the precedent is being followed. The concern regarding potential obstruction of the driveway is acknowledged, but this has been confirmed as a private matter and not relevant to planning standards. Hours of construction, again, are an industry standard. Our client regularly notes construction works within the close on evenings and weekends, including from the objector's property. This is not a condition usually set against small developments. Surface water is dealt with by building control. The surface area of the development is no greater than the existing building and held standings. So this comment is unsubstantiated and not backed up with technical knowledge.
That's 3
Covenants are not
minutes.
relevant.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
I'll now move the officer recommendation. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you, councillor James. And
Thank you, Chair.
you go.
Disappointed in the parish council here is that there isn't it before us. I think the officer's done a good job from the first set of designs you showed us to these designs, much improved. It's a small infill. As we can see, there's ample parking on site, which seems to be an issue that normally comes for us. It looks a lot like others around the development site. If you look up at number 5, that looks like a similar footprint of what this one's going to result in. So I think this is now good design with the officers' hard work, and I'll be happy with the officer recommendation.
Thank you. So I've got councillor Hunt, please, and then councillor Beard, councillor Winkler's, councillor Thorpe.
Just obviously the officer has worked well and produced what was originally done. I think the actual footprint obviously isn't changing, it is just that high that I can understand the neighbour having concerns with. There's no windows in the back from the garage, so there's no overlooking. I've from what I've seen come to in the past, I've seen bigger properties nearer to neighbours that we've had to prove, and sometimes things have gone to appeal and gone through. I think sometimes it's that perception that you think something is going to appear bigger and be more imposing, and when it's actually built, it's not as bad. In fact, I've even done that, so I looked at something at the committee thinking that's just going to be ridiculous. And when it's built, actually it's not as bad as you think. So hopefully, the officers have done well with the applicant, and hopefully it won't be as bad as what they can.
Thank you. Councillor Burke, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I've spoken on a number of applications on Mariner over the years, and certainly one's much bigger than this. I have previously had concerns about the way that the estate has been allowed to be extended and built out. But I think actually now we have got to a point where so many of them have been approved that the precedent has been set. And actually on the newer parts of the estate, some of the houses that were built off plan by Jones Homes have got these link corridors between the house and the garage. So I'm not quite sure about the suggestion of it doesn't quite fit the street scene. I actually think it's quite now appropriate for the estate that it's on. I'm glad that the officer showed what was originally submitted, because I think if that had come before us, I would have been wholly against that. I think what the officer has achieved and what the designers have achieved to get it to where it is, I think is very much welcomed. I will support this. I can't see any reason that we shouldn't. It's an acceptable in terms of designs. I'm all for it.
Thank you. Councillor Winkler, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Can the officer just put the actual photograph up again, please, Paul? That's the diagram. So just jog my memory, which practical property are we talking about?
This one here, that's the blown up version of the property, where obviously the infill extension takes place here and the garage roof is increased in height.
Okay, and this is the previous speakers. Have we got any other photographs of properties that spoke about apparently their presence in some?
I don't think we do have anything.
Sorry, can I just interject? No, that's fine. We heard the term present being set. Planning permission being granted per se does not set a precedent.
Okay,
You just need to remember that.
Take it on board. Okay, I just wanted to see it properly considered.
Thank you. Mr. Bird, did you?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a very minor point, just in response to something that councillor Hunt said, and just as a matter of clarification for members. Councillor Hunt is perfectly right that there are no windows in the back of the garage. There are 3 roof lights that are proposed in the infill extension. If I go back to the site plan, you can see where those are there. You'll also note that there is a condition, which is condition number 3, which requires those roof lights to be high in level, which should avoid any potential for views down into the gardens of numbers 5 and 7 Portrait Drive. But I just wanted to point that out to members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne.
I'll just clarify, I should have said door, not windows, more like.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Hall, please.
Thank you. Yeah, the question is, first of all, like you said, it's a very attractive design, I really can. Above the garages, what is accommodation?
So, yes, so you've got a master bedroom here, and then a dressing room and ensuite bathroom.
Well, master bedroom.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How many bedrooms in total in the property?
That will take the number of bedrooms to 5. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Simmons, please.
Thank you.
Been
Chairman.
very patiently waiting.
No, that's all right. Could the officer just skip one more page to page 8, please? I'm going to support this. I just wanted to make a comment about it was said that it was good design, and I just wonder whether replacing the garage doors with 2 sort of glazed panels is really good design. It looks as if there's a lot of sort of glass there, and I just wonder whether, in terms of design, windows to match the existing property would have been better than 2 sort of glazed screens. Doesn't doesn't make me vote against it.
The garage door.
The garage doors.
Oh,
right.
Should have gone to Specsavers.
So
It's giving the impression of a garage, it's not actually a garage. Just to keep the aesthetic the same as existing.
Just for clarity, there's the existing elevation that you can see has the same style. I can understand why that could be construed as windows, but
yeah.
Okay, members, don't see anybody else indicating, so we'll take this one to the vote. Those in favour of the officer recommendation for approval? Those against? Unanimous. Thank you very much. So permission is granted subject to the issue of decision notice. And do you want me to? No, that's fine. Right, members, we're now going to drop back to
thank you.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 2.1. And just for clarity on this one, we'll be doing 2 votes on this, but first of all, we'll take the plan permission per se, and then the listed building consent as a separate vote. So it's reference number 21/503842 full and 22/500556 LBC. And it's the former stables at Wagon Lodge, Woodsall Farm, Hillside Road, Stellisfield, ME13, OJF. I thank you also for an outline and any updates, please.
Thanks, Chairman. There's a tabled update that's been circulated for this one. Just like to draw members' attention to that. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read it. I think it's very self-explanatory, and just to clarify, officers consider that the matters raised are essentially separate matters to what we're considering as part of this application for planning permission and listed building consent. So just to clarify in terms of what the application is for, it's a change of use of disused stables into 4 holiday lets with the erection of a single-storey extension and insertion of roof lights, installation of 2 freestanding EV chargers on mounting posts to the rear of the stables, installation of PV array on roof slope of an agricultural barn, and the creation of a wildlife pond. So to go into a bit more detail as to where those elements are. I'll zoom in on that. The red line is the application site and the blue line is the rest of the land that the applicant owns. So that's such a scaled out drawing, but in terms of what we're considering this evening, bring up a more detailed one of these shortly to give you an overview. So the actual listed building would sell farmhouses here. These buildings are treated as currently listed, hence the reason for the requirement for listed building consent. Now here are the existing stables, which are vacant and in a state of disrepair. I'll show some photos shortly. The proposal is to turn them into 4 holiday lets. The agricultural barn sits here. There's a proposal to put the solar panels onto. Parking areas here, and the wildlife ponds sit down on this part of the site. In terms of a bit more detail about, in terms of the photographs, zoom out now. So there's the listed building, which I just mentioned. Here's the stables. This, what I presume is a later addition in terms of an extension, is proposed to be demolished with an extension put in its place. Yeah, so that's a close up of the stables. As you can see, they're in a state of disrepair.
So it's a mouse, I think.
It's not going to go tissue, shouldn't it? This is the more modern agricultural barn, where there's the solar PV is proposed to be put upon this roof slope. The parking area will be placed here, and the existing access to the property. This is the access off of Hillside Road. So proposed to use the existing access, and this photo was taken from a bit further up, looking back towards Hillside Road with the site effectively behind where I'm standing there taking the photograph. This is a bit more detailed in terms of the layout of the site. See, here's the stable building. Parking area here. Here's solar, an indicative drawing of the solar PV array with the ponds located here. This is the access driveway, which I was just referring to. Here's the floor plan of the stables, the proposed floor plan. So separating that out into 4 holiday lets, 2 2-bedroom, 2 1-bedroom. Here's the extent of the extension. So it will go in place of where that demolished later addition will be. Well, that will be replaced. It is slightly larger than that, but it will be, in terms of design, it will be far more in keeping with the existing building. And here's the proposed elevations of that building. This shows there's bridleways and public footpaths in the vicinity of the site, and members will probably know there's a condition which requires additional signage to warn users of the access of the fact that it is a bridleway and there are footpaths in the vicinities. So, in summary, officers recommend that the Planning Commission and listed building consent is granted on the basis that the proposal is in accordance with policies which support tourism in the rural area via the conversion of existing buildings. Officers also believe the proposal would not give rise to any unacceptable harm to the character and appearance of the countryside or the AONB, or setting for listed building. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I move the offer recommendation. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you, councillor Jones. Councillor Simmons, over to
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I apologise on behalf of the council for not being able to. It's disappointing that none of the local residents were registered to speak. I think what you've seen that the officer has shown is a very sensible use of what are redundant agricultural buildings. And I accept that a lot of the concerns that have been tabled by the parish council are about what might happen in the future. It is understandable that local residents would be concerned about what might happen in the future. There is some, the applicant has said that the holiday lets to provide an income to support future business opportunities. Quite what that means, I have no idea. I realise it's not a consideration at this moment in time. But it is slightly frustrating when applications writing that this is right up in the middle of nowhere almost, Sarsfield, and it is frustrating when developments occur in rural areas and then find that they need to do a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. It's understandable that the local residents are concerned about it. I think the biggest issue with this is actually the narrowness of Hillside Road and the access, which is not really conducive to there you are. Roads have grass growing up the middle of them and are not conducive to extensive development. And okay, so what useful use of buildings for holiday accommodation? It's just a shame that not more can be done to preserve the rural nature of the countryside. Because this is right out in the middle of, right on top of the downs. And so those are the concerns that I have, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, anybody else wish to speak? Okay. Oh, Councillor Hunt.
Better say something.
Thanks for that.
I don't agree with Councillor Simmons, I agree with the officer.
The festive season. Okay. Members, we'll take this one to the vote then. Those in favour of the officer recommendation, this is for the planning permission. Those against? Abstentions? So permissions granted 15 for and 1 abstention. So again, permission granted subject to issue of decision notice. And now we come on to the listed building consent. Those in favour? Pretty unanimous, I think. Unanimous. It's granted too. Okay, thank you for that, members. We now move on to item 2.3. And this is 22/502712 full, and it's 1 Feeling Street, Faversham, ME13 7JZ. Time goes for a note that any updates, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. No updates to this one. In terms of what the application's for, it's for the replacement of windows and door. Wouldn't ordinarily require planning permission, but it sits inside the area covered by the Article 4 direction in Faversham conservation area, and as a result, it does require planning permission. Here's the location plan. So it sits in a row of dwellings in Fielding Street. Here's the existing windows. They are timber, but they were installed, I believe, in the 1960s. And as a result of that, the style of the penetration isn't historic. So there's, in officers' view, harm caused by that. That's the rear of the dwelling. This field is a wider view of Fielding Street, so there's a variety of window styles. You can see something also taking a more modern approach, which isn't ideal. And there's some more. There's some here, which is the sash style with the glazing bars as well. Some more examples within that street. In terms of the proposal, I'll zoom this in. Yes. That's the existing. Proposed, so there'll be sliding sashes and with glaze and bars and the 4-panel door. In terms of a bit more detail about those windows. Sorry, there's some actual legible ones. There we go. These are UPVC windows, but they are of a heritage style, which the council have approved in various places throughout the Paddle Conservation Area, and they also have the glazing bars as well. So, I mean, in summary, although UPVC versus timber is not usually ideal in the conservation area, in this case, because the current timber windows are of the 1960s style, it's considered that this proposal meets the test of preserving or enhancing the character and appearance of the conservation area by virtue of the proposed design. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I move the recommendation. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Joyce. Members. Councillor Winkles.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the overall street scene of photographs, I've seen we've got any reasons to go against the efforts of recommendations. I'll ask the police. Thank you.
Okay. Members, anybody else? Councillor Simmons.
Thank you. I just want to, sadly, no comment from the town council.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I think it's a shame that even with plastic windows or UPVC windows, that they could have been even more. They could have had smaller panes. It could look even like it might have been when Fielding Street was originally constructed.
Okay. Councillor Jones.
I welcome the improvement and I welcome the enhancement of the conservation area.
Thank you. Okay, members, we'll take this one to the vote then, please. Those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? So that's 14 for, 2 against, so permission is granted, again subject to the issue of decision notice. And then it's just over to part 5 members. And I'll throw that out to see if there's any observations or comments on the part 5. Oh. Councillor Beard.
Just to say, Meadowview Park, it proves that the kind policy isn't working. A good result.
Thank you. Good, and I would that is a cracking result. Okay, members, all that remains then is to wish you all already a very happy Christmas and a safe time with your families, all of you choose to spend it. Look forward to seeing you all in the new year. Safe journey back home. The meeting is closed and thank you for participating, Councillor Darby. Occasionally.
The families can get it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yes.